So you have to be that handyman that knows enough of all that and then know how to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you got to figure, okay, how am I going to run my business?
Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Jim Nelson. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Hello, Jim here at RV Life, and I guess that means I work in the RV industry. Kinda. I do help host the RV Entrepreneur here, and I did attend the big RV show in Hershey recently, but when Renee and I hit the road 17 plus years ago, I never imagined I'd be sitting here in this driver's seat. Well, my guest today was born into the RV industry. His first job was at his parents' dealership at 8 years old, and ever since then, Dave Helgeson has done everything you can imagine in the RV world. He's worked at dealerships, worked on RVs, owned dealerships. Now, he's a technical expert writing for various RVing websites, and he's an in-demand speaker at RV shows and events. Chances are, if you've ever researched some technical issue or maintenance for your RV, you've likely read some of Dave's work on the RV Life Network. But no, you haven't seen his videos. That's because Dave focuses on long-form writing. We discuss why he's not on YouTube, and how the best answers to your technical RV questions are usually found in expert articles and discussion forums. He also has some great advice for content creators who want to stand out when making yet another RV tour or product review. Spoiler alert, it means really knowing what you're talking about. Speaking of which, we dive deep into RV maintenance and what you need to know if you're considering a job as a technician or starting a mobile repair shop. I also asked Dave what other opportunities exist for working in the industry as an RV entrepreneur, and he provided some great words of wisdom on everything from inspection and repair to remote jobs, seasonal and regional work, to starting your own RV dealership. Meanwhile, our discussion revealed plenty of tips for the DIY crowd who prefers to work on their own rigs. So hang on for my chat with lifelong RV lifer Dave Helgeson right after this brief message.
Fall leaves, winter snow, or summer sun. Whatever your RV adventure brings, Cool RV is with you. This revolutionary solution enhances your RV air conditioner for both cooling and heating, making sure you're always at the perfect temperature. With built-in heat pump technology in many RVs, Cool RV helps you stay warm during the colder months and cool when things heat up. Whether it's your next winter camping trip or a summer getaway, Cool RV keeps your comfort front and center. Cool RV, for every season, every adventure. Learn more at coolrv.com.
That's Cool RV with a K.
Podcast listeners can save 5% with code RVLIFE.
Dave, thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm glad to finally meet you.
You're welcome. Glad to put a face to your name as well.
And you basically have lived your entire life in the RV industry, so I want to dive into all that. But technically, this is the RV Life Entrepreneur Podcast, and we actually connected through RV Life. And I asked all my guests two simple questions, just real brief, get to know you kind of thing. When were you first introduced to the RV Life, and how is that different now?
I was basically born into it. So some people joke that I was born in an RV. My mom says that's not true. Conceived maybe, born no. So obviously back then the term RV hadn't been coined yet. So they were trailer homes, campers, whatever people wanted to call them. And so, honestly, before my brain started recording memories, I was, had my first RV experience.
Awesome. So what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? What does entrepreneurism mean to you?
Oh, yeah, that's an hour by itself.
Sure.
Obviously taking care of yourself, setting your own schedule, making sure you're meeting deadlines that are imposed on you. You don't have a boss telling you otherwise, and going out and looking for those opportunities to earn an income, whatever that might be.
Right. The best thing is you're your own boss, and the worst thing is that you're your own boss. A lot of responsibility there. So
right, exactly. And the office is always right there.
Yeah. And so is the great outdoors. I'd rather be out there. But like you say, you've been in the RV industry for
yes,
forever. Fill me in on how you've evolved kind of as a business person, writer, and speaker in the RV world. How did all that evolve and take shape over the years?
All right. So I started working at my parents' dealership, actually at my grandpa's dealership at the time. It started in 1937. He built trailers during the war. So my first paid gig was when I was 8, was rewinding the Airstream Adventure. What was it called? Living the Dream or something like that. It was a 20-minute back play video. We played at shows. Every 20 minutes, I'd come up, rewind the film, and start it again. And I made a whopping $8 for 8 hours of work. I thought I was rich as an 8-year-old. Sure. From there, I turned into, coming after school and do a lot boy work. Progressed to that. I ran our rental department for a while. Mechanic. I was the accessory store manager for a while. I moved into service manager, eventually sales manager. My wife and I started our own dealership after that. So I've been in every position at RV dealership except bookkeeping. That was my wife's end of the gig. So from there, we had the opportunity to start doing shows in the early 90s. Our kids weren't really interested in being in the RV industry. So it's like, well, sooner or later, we got to get rid of the dealership, even though it had been a family tradition for, a long time. But it's like, why keep something alive they don't want to be part of? So we started doing the RV shows through an association my dad started in 1966 with some other RV people. And we did the shows, and I was invited to write by the predecessor to RV Life, Tony Knutson. And I thought, I haven't done, well, I'll take that back. I started writing before that for a different name. I saw that was my fourth career opportunity, if you will, is to progress to writing and speaking. She started having me write blogs for RV Life in 2008, if I recall. Other websites followed. Still some print magazines were in there as well as I submitted stuff to. And then I got the opportunity to speak. I was asked by Chuck Woodbury. He ran the RV bookstore at the time. He was doing an open meet and greet for some of his readers. He was doing 2 seminar rooms all day long, inviting readers to come in, discount some books. And I was positioned against Gary Bunzer, the late Gary Bunzer. It's like, well, nobody's going to come listen to me with somebody like Gary there. Well, and I'd been writing a lot through RV Life about boondocking, a lot of interest about boondocking. And so I thought, well, I'll do a seminar on boondocking. Lo and behold, people flocked in to see it. Right. So I thought, well, there's an in here, and I enjoy sharing my knowledge. So from then on, I started doing seminars on our own shows. FMCA reached out to me. I started doing their shows. Prior to the pandemic, Gary introduced me to the people at the Hershey show. And once COVID passed, I started speaking there. So we quit doing the shows a couple of years ago. It's like, yeah, I'm getting too old for this. There was more opportunity to travel the country. And that was kind of our goal, is if we could travel the country on somebody else's nickel,
sure,
doing RV shows, speaking and sharing what we love to do, that's where we want to be in retirement. So that's kind of the overall history of our progression through the RV industry.
And you're still at it. You've seen it all. You're a wealth of knowledge. How have you seen the industry evolve over the past 10 to 15 years? What's changed?
We're on our fifth travel trailer. And the last one we bought in 2010, just as we're coming out of the recession. We thought this is going to be our 5-year trailer because the grandkids are going to show up. We're going to need something with more sleeping. And guess what? We still have it. Because, back when I started selling trailers, a 31-foot, we sold Airstreams. A 31-foot trailer was huge.
Sure.
Nobody could imagine why they want to pull anything longer than the 31-foot. So most of them were meant for weekend use. You had to pull out gauchos and stuff. And nowadays, finding anything shorter than the 31-foot is almost a challenge.
It is.
So they've gotten a lot bigger, more livable, of course, more gadgets. Some's for the good, some's for the bad, as those who are listening will know. There can be problems with gadgets, and the more moving parts, the more things can break. So we've seen a lot of changes. The nice thing is that some of the technology change, especially with lithium batteries hitting the scene, for those that like us, like me, that like to dry camp, there's a huge leaps and bounds there. I just finally went lithium. My lead acid crapped out here early this summer. So making that thing.
Yeah.
So yes, there's lots of changes. I'm not
Lots of
sure I can
changes.
wrap them all into one statement.
No problem there. I'm kind of specifically interested, like over the past 5 years, especially like post-pandemic lockdown. Have you noticed anything change in the quality or the use or the manufacturing or the sales of RVs in the immediate history?
Well, yeah, all of the above. So,
Sure.
you know, I haven't had direct experience, but with COVID lockdowns, labor force problems, and the huge influx of RVs, I'm on several forums and Facebook groups, and it sounds like quality suffered uh, on new RVs, and the ability to get them repaired in a timely manner suffered because there's just nobody was ready for that kind of insurge of business.
Sure.
Um, and a lot of new people entered the market, obviously, during COVID. Hey, we can't fly to Europe. We can't do this. So we got a lot of newbies. And one of the seminars I started speaking on last year is like a lot of those people didn't get proper walkthroughs because the tech couldn't enter their RV. They stood at the door and say, over there is the refrigerator and over there is the furnace. You turn that switch. So there was a lot of people that went out in RVs for the first time that weren't ready. They weren't properly educated. And sadly, then that leads to some of those did have problems. Some was just misunderstanding how their rig worked or what an amp hour is, how long that's going to drive my furnace. And, they didn't have that basic knowledge. And the same thing, a lot of new salespeople came in or during that time that may not understand how all that worked either. One thing we did at our dealership, every salesperson we had owned a rig or had at least used a rig. So they were RVers. They understood how they operated, how, why this particular accessory might benefit the consumer, where, you might get an untrained salesperson. Oh, look, it's got an inverter on board. Well, a newbie might not know what an inverter is. Okay, that's nice. What's it do for me? So there's been some of that going on. Obviously, bigger and longer and more features on them, which some people then go out and find, well, I can't camp where I want to camp because it's too big. I can't camp where I want to camp because there's no hookups and I can't run my 12-volt refrigerator. So and another thing is a lot of people have turned to other user groups rather than looking to people that have some expertise in it. And that bad information just gets shared on. I used to go on a lot of sites. I used to try to clean it up. It's like, it's not my job. Right. If there's something dangerous, I'll explain it, but I will address it in the seminars I do. So better training of mechanics, probably salespeople, better info to new customers. And then again, AI, which is popped up, it just repeats the same mistakes when you ask a question. If it doesn't know any better, it just learns what it's read online, and some of that stuff online is bad information to start with. So that's kind of what drove me to some of these new seminars I'm speaking on too. It's like, people need to know better,
Yeah, a lot of that kind of resonates with us. We're in a new rig now, and we ended up buying new, which we never thought we would do because we looked at so many used rigs that were, relatively new, like pandemic era, and they just didn't seem to be kept up. The users weren't necessarily maintaining them like I would if I lived in it. But where do you see the industry headed in the near future? Like, do you envision any major changes either in manufacturing, sales, or usage?
That's a great question.
The big unknown.
Obviously more people are working like yourselves from their RV, so you've seen offices being incorporated, more Wi-Fi already built onto them. So I think that will continue to increase as people can work remotely. It's really hard to say it. People like you and I in our age bracket, we're pretty set in our ways, but the younger generations coming in are getting more interested than ever before, and how they're going to use them is kind of hard to foresee. I see a lot of these new RVs coming fully electric, fully this and all that, and it's great, but the price is hugely expensive. Okay, can the people there aiming these at, the 30 to 40-year-olds. Can they afford this? I can't answer that question. I don't know, what kind of employment they have, and if it's going to be their only source of housing, probably so. So we're definitely getting away from, where I grew up in the 60s and 70s, where you took it out for maybe the week or 2 week vacation, use it on weekends. And, that's how people envision using them now. So I don't know. I honestly can't say where we're heading. Obviously, manufacturing techniques will improve. I think, China and some of the other countries are getting on board. Will kind of like the big three automakers back in the 70s. They'll be forced to change and adopt new technologies and get the quality up. And again, people ask me about quality of RVs, because,
Right.
well, my Toyota never has any problems. Well, that Toyota is a true manufacturer. RV manufacturers aren't really manufacturers. They're assemblers, just like somebody built your house. They take this person's window, they take this person's door, they take this person's axles, and they put them all together into an RV. And send it down the road. And an RV is a home on wheels. It's constantly being exposed to bumps, bouncing, basically an earthquake every time it moves. And finally, they're built by imperfect people with imperfect materials in an imperfect world. So, you're not, I don't foresee the RV manufacturing getting to the level of the auto manufacturers until they are truly fully in-house automated manufacturers where they control aspects of it. Airstream has some of that. Airstream builds a lot of their own components and assembles them, but they still sub out the appliances. They use everybody else's appliance and somebody's axles. And so I don't know. It will definitely improve. I think there'll be pressure to make it improve. But I don't have my crystal ball, so I can't honestly say where we'll be in 10 years.
That's an interesting way to look at it, about how the manufacturers are actually assemblers, because they might be manufacturing.
Yeah, they're assemblers.
Chassis, but they're really just kind of putting parts together.
Right. And even the chassis, most of them are subbed out to LCI or somebody else that welds up the chassis.
Sure. You mentioned offices, and I was kind of surprised that there wasn't more like office spaces available in RVs. But what other needs from RVers do you see that might not be currently met within the industry?
I'm kind of with you. I see the articles that show them. We didn't get through everything at Hershey Show. It's almost impossible.
Right.
And we weren't looking for something with an office in it. So, I don't know if people are, some people with toy haulers are just using the back end how they see fit. So you might never see the end product. Personally, when we were doing 6 to 7 week trips in the fall and we were actively selling our shows, my office is outside. Why do I want to sit in an RV when I'm sitting central Utah, where it's 75 or 80 degrees and it's beautiful outside. So I just set up a table outside and a laptop and a hotspot, or use my phone to make calls. So that's a good point. How important is that? Or I just sit at the dinette, much like you're doing. I just sit at the dinette seat in the RV, and when I was done, I could put the laptop away and use it for what it's intended to.
Do you see other needs, either for families or what about personally? What would you like to see, built into RVs of the future?
In my seminars, I tell people I'm a keep it simple, stupid kind of guy. I describe this. So, our RV is basically our magic carpet and base camp to get us where we want to go. It's somewhere to eat, sleep, use the restroom, and the rest of the time we're out doing something. So I don't need a lot of gadgets. I want a system that will work, lots of capacity as far as batteries, fresh water, and holding tank capacity. We stay out longer. The problem why we haven't bought a new RV, travel trailer in our case, is we have a parking restriction when we're at home. We live on a very steep hill. I have to back in on a blind side. I don't have a lot of length. I might be able to accommodate a 28 and a half, but right now we're at 26.10, like to stay there. And what we have now has a couch, really easy. Here's what we want. We want a couch, a dinette, a queen bed, and a bath with linen storage in it. That's our requirements. We tell salespeople, we can do that. And they start looking at the brochure. It's like, no, we don't have anything like so. So things they could build easily were offered 10 or 14 years ago. All of a sudden, they're putting so much other stuff in there. Some of them are skipping the basic living thing. So
I hear you.
That's where I'm at. Give me the basics. I don't need a lot of fancy stuff. I'll add it if I want it.
Keep it simple. We had, our main thing was we needed a travel trailer because we now have a small truck camper. So we needed something small and lightweight. But working on the road, we need 2 places to sit. I just wanted, we need a dinette and a couch. And we finally found it in a new Arctic Fox, and we paid the price for it. But trying to find that setup, it seems like most of them are designed with the recliners and a TV, not necessarily for working. But we needed 2 places to sit, and we finally found it. You write and speak a lot about technical and maintenance issues, and you really got that down. You know your stuff. So what do you think are, say, maybe the top 3 issues RVers need to pay most attention to when it comes to maintaining or repairing their own rigs?
They need the basic understanding of how the unit works, what appliance it might be, or the running gear or whatever. None of them are that complicated, but you need to understand the sequence of events, like how your furnace fires off, and what the thermostat's purpose is to start that process, and what you should be listening for, the gas valve opening, the spark. It's really easy to tell when it's not working. Oh, it's got to be this component because this is where it quits working in the sequence. And like I said, people go to online to ask those questions. It's like, oh my goodness, they're getting, well, the thermostat's bad. No, the thermostat can't be bad if the furnace starts. So, ignore that. So they need an understanding how it works so they can either potentially fix it themselves or talk intelligently to the shop that they take it to, and make sure that the shop understands what they tell them. So when the shop goes, oh, this is bad. It's like, no, that can't be bad because this is happening. So, and there's the information's online if you want to find it. It's just, you need to make sure you have a reputable source to look at that, or spend the time to go down to RVTI, or sign up for a mechanics course and get yourself fully trained. That's the ultimate thing. Our RV hasn't been to a shop since it was new and under warranty, and I could have fixed the warranty items, but it's like, why should I? It's under warranty. But it hasn't returned to a shop since then. I've done all the repairs and maintenance myself. So having a good idea of how it's supposed to work, what should we maintain on a regular basis? A good example is the new Easy Lube axle. You probably have it on your coach.
Okay.
It's great. You can pump grease in all you want, but guess what? Then you go in the old school way, when you pulled your hub and drum off every year to pack your bearings, you were doing what? You were looking at your brake system. You're looking at your pads, your magnets. Right. That's not happening if they lose Easy Lube system. So people are missing that step. They just pump grease in, and guess what? 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden they have brake issues because they haven't taken a look inside, and neither is an RV shop to see what's happening in there. And brakes need service. Every year I pull my hubs and drums before we head on a big trip. Just nothing should be worn out every year, but just to know that some spring hasn't broken or dropped loose, a retainer clip hasn't come off, the shoes have cracked, any host of things. The wire is rubbed, against an armature and shorted out, because brakes and bearings are pretty important on a travel trailer. Like I tell people, why do you have a travel trailer? I said, because if the wheels go around and it stops, it's never going to strand me. And as you know, you can take your tow vehicle to any number of shops nationwide that don't have to be specialized in fixing a motorhome or a diesel, like a Mercedes engine. So when I do need, which that hasn't happened in 30 years, when I do need maintenance on my tow vehicle, it can be readily be done.
If you're listening to the RV Entrepreneur, you're likely working from your RV. And that means you need good cellular service. So let me tell you about the King Extend Pro 5G Cell Signal Booster, the ultimate solution for boosting your cell signal on the road. Perfect for RVs, trucks, and trailers, the King Extend Pro enhances voice and data coverage for all U.S. carriers. Enjoy better connectivity whether you're parked or on the move, with no contracts or monthly fees. Use the King Extend Pro Plus model and enjoy double the boosting power with a second set of antennas. Enjoy the mobile RV lifestyle while staying connected with 5G-ready technology and versatile mounting options. For more information, visit kingconnect.com and see why King has been an RV connectivity leader for over 2 decades. RVE podcast listeners can save 15% with code RVE2024 at checkout. And now, back to my discussion with Dave Helgeson.
Sure.
Sure. So it's not like one of the most important things I took away from what you said there is just paying attention to detail and looking at things like with the easy lube axles and the hubs and such. You could put too much grease in there. It's too easy to pop off a seal if you overload them. So you got to get down in there and get your hands dirty.
If you overlay, well, the nice thing about right.
Yeah.
My understanding of the easy lube is supposed to prevent this popping the grease seal by bringing the old grease out the front.
Yeah, I was thinking about the old axle buddy
give you another idea,
or something like that. Go ahead.
Yeah. The bearing buddy is the worst thing ever. Worst thing ever because they push the seal up always.
Yeah, pop
bearing
it right
buddy.
off.
Yeah, bearing buddies. Yeah, they would pop it right off. You're leaking. And where did that grease go? Very likely it found its way to your brake pads, brake shoes.
Sure.
And then
it's so important
problem.
just to pay attention to things and noises. And our very first rig, we had a leak. And, Renee noticed it, but didn't really pay attention to it. And one of our very first things we ever told people in our RV blog was pay attention to any leaks and find out where they're coming from and fix them right away because they get worse. So it's just a matter of paying attention
immediately
and critical thinking, oh, why is that sound coming from the furnace? And is that the right sound? So Google it, get in those forums, head over to some of the RV Life communities and get answers if you don't know them, because you can save yourself a lot of money. Yeah. But this is the RV Entrepreneur Show. So let's talk shop for a second here. I see a lot of talk about maintenance, inspections and such. What core talents would an avid RVer need to get down, and where might they get started to build, say, a nomadic business around maintenance or inspection? What do they need to know most of all if they're a handy person and want to like do it for a living? What do they need to know first?
Right. If they're going to do it for a living and have all aspects, they need to have obviously everything that a homeowner needs to know, plus the bearings. So axles, you have to know plumbing, you have to know electricity, you have to know if it's propane on the rig, which most of them will. You need to understand gas systems. You need to stand both your 12 volt and 120 volt system. You need to understand the brake system, especially on travel trailer. It's now electric instead of hydraulics you got to have on a typical vehicle. So you have to be that handyman that knows enough of all that and then know how to apply it. And then, of course, there's sealing the roof, sealing the windows. What happens if it's a tin-sided unit when the metal comes loose? As you mentioned, leaks are a big thing. How do you determine where that is actually coming in, especially in an all-metal unit where there's a few seams? Definitely, if you're going to do that, you need to have been in this industry for a long time, understand it, have grown up in the trades to where you understand plumbing and wiring, all that. Or you need to take a training course, either through the RV Technical Institute or RVTA down in Texas, and get that full understanding from people that know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you got to figure, okay, how am I going to run my business? Am I going to make people come to me? In which case, man, you're going to have real estate, you're going to have rents, you're going to have, in either case, you can do I do mobile to where I go out to these people and fix their rig? Am I going to be able to have a rig with enough parts on it and enough the test equipment with me? How much time am I going to burn in traffic to do that?
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. Obviously, there's a need. Shops are backed up for months quite often, and as I said, I haven't had to live that experience because I do all my own repair. And thankfully, parts are readily available. I do. My son-in-law does work for a dealer locally, but I have found lately I can get everything I need offline, typically on Amazon. Mm-hmm. RV parts are flooding Amazon. If you know what you're looking at, you can get the part quickly. So that would be your parts distribution system, probably if you're going to be an independent, rather than go this traditional route, because they typically ship for free and are quite often priced less. And I can get it through my son-in-law at his discounted employee price. So there's money to be made there, but obviously if you don't know what you're doing and you don't get the good reviews, people aren't going to hire, and they're going to learn real fast that you don't know what you're doing. Prime example, my former pastor, his two daughters were living in a 30-some foot travel trailer on their property, and they had a problem with the furnace, and an RV tech came out, pulled the furnace, take it in for the shop. And his assistant was supposed to plug the gas line. Well, guess what? The assistant did not plug the gas line. and they turned the gas back on, and both girls were in the unit when it blew. Luckily, they were towards the center of the rig, and as we know, an explosion blows things outwards.
Oh
So they,
no.
had the concussion of the gas going, but did not get thrown wildly about. Did just totally level the RV practically. So
Wow.
there's an example of a mobile RV mechanic that you wouldn't want to hire.
Right.
Um, but there are good
So
ones too. I know a gentleman locally, and his wife started an inspection and a company, and they seem to be doing well with it.
so you're a fan of the certifications that are available in the training courses?
I am. They're finally gotten streamlined. There used to be a lot of technical colleges. In fact, I was on a board of advisors once that started one here in Kirkland, Washington, a RV tech college. And one of the mechanics I used to work with my parents. They said he applied. They called up and said, if you're going to get a tech guy, he's it. He knows his stuff. I fully can endorse him. But they couldn't attract. They were trying to attract high school students and stuff that really didn't know what they wanted to do for life. And they couldn't attract enough students to make it financially feasible. Where your national ones, RVTI and stuff, they're getting enough bodies that they can, pay to have a good instructor, pay to have the equipment there, the test equipment, pay to get some RVs in to work on. So yeah, I'm pretty much a fan of the two that are in existence right now. I can't say I know of any technical colleges that are independent running. Now, RVTI is reaching out and trying to develop courses, and we were working with the late Gary Bunzer here to do it locally with our dealers before he passed, because obviously he knew what he's talking about. He was writing the curriculum for RVTI. So we were trying to get a technical college on board with it. And part of their problem was just ramping up to get enough students in a room and interest to make it happen.
Interesting. So they at least cover the basics and get you started. But you mentioned equipment. Kind of what tools are like the bare necessities to get started in RV maintenance? And do these differ than your typical DIY crowd? Someone interested in doing it as a business, do they need certain specialty tools, or what do you got to have in your toolbox to do this sort of thing?
For the basics, not a whole lot. What immediately comes to mind, you get a manometer, which checks gas pressure. There's analog ones still out there, basically with a gauge, and there's digital ones now. I haven't played with the digital ones. To know where your gas pressure is at, checking for gas leaks and light. And they're not very expensive. I think I looked like $50 for a gauged one on Amazon. You're going to need a good voltometer to measure, obviously, voltage, resistance, and what's going on. But more important, you need to understand resistance. Like if you're checking the heat element on an absorption refrigerator, well, what am I supposed to be looking at? How do I measure it? Where do I measure it? Obviously, all the hand tools. Now, if you're going to get really involved, obviously, RVs that are stick and tin, which is really aluminum,
Mm-hmm.
you can do a lot of field work. I mean, you get a laminated sidewall. Obviously, it delaminates. A mobile tech's not going to be able to do a lot with that. So he's in a shop. We have to refer people, but appliance repair, most all appliance repair can be done in the field, or remove it and take it back to bench test if he has a shop. Obviously, if you remove it, we talked about the gas plug just a minute ago. Make sure that
Mm-hmm.
the customer is aware of what he can and can't do with the appliance removed. Some refrigerators are too big to get out the door, in which case they typically have to break down the dinette, set up the dinette, and work on it there if they have to get to the back of it. And the biggest thing is more technology comes on board, you're going to need more training and higher equipment to test that. A lot of the electronics coming on board. You may need a special tool to check the electronics. For years, to check a furnace board or refrigerator board or a water heater board, you need a special tool, diagnostic tool, plug it in. They're not very expensive. I haven't looked one up in years, but you can probably buy one for $200 or $300, so you can check a board in the field. So it could be relatively inexpensive to get started, especially if you're already a handyman and have the basics. Test light, a manometer, a voltometer, know how to use them. I don't own a lot of expensive tools here, and I can do most everything I need to on my rig. But it's a basic rig. I don't have an in-command system, which does everything Bluetooth and so forth, stuff like that.
Yeah, knowing how to use those tools, that's kind of the important part there. And you did mention shops, and so many dealers are booked way out when scheduling work right now. Is there any sort of need for a transient or seasonal workforce on site at dealerships or events in the RV industry now? And if so, where can someone start to find those jobs?
Oh, absolutely. To give you an idea, back at my parents' dealership, we had a guy named Bob. He was an Airstream owner, pretty knowledgeable. He's really good at doing skin work, changing the panels out on them. And
Mm-hmm.
every winter he would go south down and do the quartzite thing, but we would load up the back of his truck with common road panels that get damaged, rivets, furnace boards, all that stuff. And he'd go down there, hang his shingle out, and he had all the work he needed to do. And then occasionally he would call, hey, ship me this, ship me that, before the days of Amazon. And he did well. Obviously, here in the Northwest, one of the problems is we don't get as slow as we used to in the North in the winter. But when we had our dealerships, winter, you're paying your mechanics, and there's not enough work in to cover payroll sometimes.
Right.
You do advertise for, hey, bring your rig in now for the skin work you didn't want to fix. The things that have been annoying problems, but you didn't want to take your rig out of service for. We give discounts on that. But it's tough for a dealer to ramp up to have enough techs to cover what they'll need in the summer to pay them in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So if you became that person, a transient person, you'd have all the work you want if you wanted to work in the northern climates in the summer and go down into the warmer climates, Florida, Arizona, Texas, in the winter and hang out your shingle or either work for a dealer down there. They would welcome you if you knew what they were doing. Even during COVID, when the dealers couldn't get the units prepped and out the door fast enough, I talked to one dealer friend. He was paying their shop $400 to PDI, which is pre-delivery inspection, PDI unit,
Mm-hmm.
and walk the customer through. It's like, I thought about telling dealers, you pay me $400, I'll come PDI the unit and send out the door, because it's not that hard. But they couldn't get their units out the door fast enough. And I'm sure several would have said, you're on. It's like, but I didn't want to tie myself down to a schedule like that.
So how might someone approach a dealership if they have these great ideas to be able to help in that way? Are like, what position do they call at the dealership, or how do they present themselves as being able to help?
Well, first, get yourself trained. Right. If you want to work service, get yourself trained, have the credentials that show I am a trained tech with, RVTA. I'm missing an acronym in there, but
Mm-hmm.
or RVTI, and say, here, I'm certified. I want to work. They can either come on as a seasonal employee, and I'm sure they grab you right up and say, here's the season I want to work. Then I'm going to leave. I'm going to be done on April 1st, and I'm going to go back north, whatever it might be. And you'll quickly find somebody down in the hotter climates where in the summer they don't have enough business, when it's broiling hot in Phoenix, for example, that would take you in the winter. You could also probably go in as an independent, say, oh, I'm in, because they would love you, because they don't have to pay payroll taxes on you. They don't have to pay L&I. They don't have to work at workman's comp, and say, I will work for you as an independent contractor and help you with your service loads back up. And I'm sure they jump all over that. And then you can do the same when you travel the country. And, as maybe you're going north to south, you hang your shingle out on an RV park along the way, and guarantee you're going to have somebody that's like, yeah, I've been having this annoying problem, but I don't like too much in the shop. Can you come over and take a look at it? We used to sell the Avion product from my wife and I's dealership. And we go to all the regional rallies, and same thing. I would take my tools and some common parts, but they would come to me and say, yeah, I got this. This does this weird thing. It still works right, but it's annoying. Can you take a look at it? So, I'd be busy doing all that kind of stuff because I was right there. They didn't have to take it to the dealership. So there's definitely money to be made if you want to be mobile. Less likely if you're at a fixed address and we need to hire you all year round. Unless you have another trade you could apply in the off season.
Wonderful advice. That's good to hear. I was wondering, is there anything lacking at dealerships or manufacturers that might be addressed by remote workers, say sales or marketing, or are there any opportunities available for working remotely in the RV industry?
I'm certain there is. I'm a keep it simple, stupid kind of guy, and I'm not high tech as far as doing online stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But without a doubt, you could help them with their marketing. again, if you're mobile, they're always looking for sales reps to be in the field. But they're hiring ambassadors, brand ambassadors, to travel around to different events to highlight their brand. Is one way to go. So, and I expect customer service would be really easy to do remotely. If you know the product and know what you're talking about, they'd be, I'm sure, happy to sub that out and rather keep it in house, especially if you're willing to work those weird hours that not 9 to 5.
Service and support. But you mentioned ambassadors, and I was specifically going to ask you about that. I'm sure you've seen plenty of content creators and influencers out there with videos about every RV model and product you can dream of. But what do you think these folks should be focusing on if they actually want to produce valuable content? It all seems the same.
Not have a video that starts with somebody with a scary face, or
Thank you.
Or catastrophe introduction. Yeah. I stay away from YouTube because don't sensationalize this stuff. It's like, I would rather read the answer in 5 minutes than watch a 40-minute video. The few I do watch tend to be good. But I obviously know which ones to discard pretty often. I had to, before I work on my motorcycle or my snowmobile anymore, I almost always find some, because I'm not experts. I almost always find a YouTube video because somebody showed me how to do it easier than I learned myself. But, sadly with COVID, all these people bought RVs that are younger people sometimes that have the skills to put together a YouTube channel. And all of a sudden, after owning it 2 years, they're an expert. And it's like, no. And some of the stuff they put out is highly questionable. In fact, for one of the other websites I write for, I started a column called Fact or Fiction for a while. And I take some bad piece of information, or maybe good piece that people didn't think was good information, and query the audience. Is this fact or is this fiction? And I would trip up a lot of current owners that say, no, that's fact. It's like, no, that's fiction. And here's why. So that's my take on the videos. Get an expert. I think the experts have found their following and have a large following. Know they're getting good stuff. Some of the ones you look at have only seen a couple thousand views. Probably are trying to turn a buck and maybe not know what they're looking for. And sadly, some of this stuff's being cranked out by artificial intelligence. It's just repeating, regurgitating garbage that's been out for years and years and years that should be wiped off the internet.
Right. So let's get back to the hands-on part a bit. What can someone expect, say, if they want to jump into the more hands-on aspect of RV entrepreneurship? Say they want to start a mobile repair business, or even say start a dealership or shop. How can someone in startup mode deal with the cyclical or seasonal nature of RVing? You mentioned, a lot of seasonal downtime. So when you're getting started up, how do you get through those hard times? What does a new dealership need to do to survive, or repair shop?
Nowadays, to be a new dealership, you'd have to be really well capitalized. My wife and I started our dealership in 1989. Actually, we took over a dealership my brother had established a few years earlier. We put a second mortgage on our house for like 20 grand, and all of a sudden we had $300,000 worth of flooring to floor inventory, and we were and my brother helped craft the corporate license that cost us, I think, $500 to be incorporated. And we were in business. Nowadays, that's probably not going to happen as well. You're going to be inventory wise, you're going to need to be able to floor a lot of new inventory. You're going to have some cash on hand for the used inventory. Less than bank will also floor that. You're going to have to obviously find a location to do your business from. I know business licensing permitting is going to be way more money and more steps than when we got in. So you're probably going to be losing money for a couple months before you even open your doors. And then, you're going to have to get your name established and find the techs, find the salespeople. And in a good market right now, well, it's not as good as it was, but where are you going to find those people? The dealers can't find enough as it is. So you're going to have to beat the bushes to find a bunch of people to make that happen. Right. Doable. The other thing is all the good product lines have been gobbled up by the bigger dealers. So the product lines you're probably going to get are not well established, or ones the public readily wants to purchase or knows about. So probably you might have to open as a niche dealer and do those niche markets that are maybe only 10% of the market and know your product well. Obviously, some of the products we sold through the years, we sold the Airstream product, which was, in fact, first RV I ever sold was an Airstream at the age of 17. But I grown up in them and at rallies and stuff. I knew the product well, and I could feature benefit it well. But that's not a product line you're going to go out and probably pick up today. We also sold like the Bigfoot line, which is all fiberglass. So getting a line that's either a well-built line but isn't representation in your market that's open, or getting one that's trying to compete with an independent, trying to compete with maybe Forest River or Thor, or maybe you're lucky one of those sister lines is still available that competes with a well-known line. So it'd be tough. Now, since we aren't a tough market, the dealers aren't in expansion mode anymore. There might be some markets available where you could get opened up, get your name out there, get some shows, train up your salespeople, your service department, and make it happen.
So it
probably easier to start out as a tech or.
Right. That's what I thought. Dealership wise, that sounds like some serious research, time investment, lots of money. But you mentioned some great advice when it comes to like maintenance or inspection, and possibly going regional and seasonal and heading north at certain times of the year and moving out and putting your shingle out. So that was great advice. Do you have any final words of wisdom for listeners hoping to get more involved in the RV industry or start an RV related business?
Well, obviously, if you've been in it for a while, you'll see the needs. The old business thing. If you can find a need and fulfill it, you're going to be successful. So there are definitely needs out there in the marketplace. Know the product inside and out. Know what you're talking about. And there's opportunities. I can, without a doubt. But yeah. Know what you want to do. Know your time restraints. One big problem in the Seattle area, traffic will kill you. Either getting customers to you or getting out to your customer if you're going to be mobile in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So if you're going to be a mobile inspection business, you got to keep that in mind as your bottom line. Is what am I going to burn this in labor getting to jobs? What's the insurance going to cost me?
Sure. So again, paying attention to detail, kind of looking at the big picture, whether you're fixing something or trying to set something up. We connected through your work at RV Life with your articles, speaking recently at the Hersey Show. Where can listeners find more of your work?
All across the social knowledge platform, which is RV Life, that's RV, do it yourself RV, RV Living. There's a few more in there. I also write for RVtravel.com. There's where most 95% of it. I've done some writing for some trade still print publications. The name escapes me right now. It's been a couple years since I wrote for that. I do not. Again, I try to keep it simple, stupid. Everybody says, "Well, where's your YouTube channel? Where's it?" I don't really want to go there. Something to maintain. It won't be fun for me. So I try to keep it fun. Speaking, I love to share my knowledge of speaking, because as you're finding out, you just prompt me, I can talk all day. Mm-hmm. And the writing, you guys, obviously RV Life or Social Knowledge is sending me topics that they are seeing are needed. Some of them are techno, some of them are lifestyle. And I'm not a big fan of writing super techno. I like to keep it basic. Here's what you need to know. We just did several on winterizing this last month, that this got the basics out there, and don't fall for these myths or these inaccuracies. But it's out there. Just Google my name. Luckily, I got a very unusual last name with Helgeson, so you won't get many competing for the name when you Google it, and you'll probably land on pages and pages of stuff. Just Google my name and the topic you're on it, and I probably have covered it. Like I've told Renee several times, I don't do diesels. I don't do air brakes. Because I've been towable all my life. I'm knowledgeable on them, but I'm far from an expert.
And you know just about everything else. And we're going to include all sorts of links in the show notes here for some of the RV Life websites that you write for. Dave, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for sharing your insight.
Yep.
You know, I could have talked with Dave for hours. He really knows his stuff. And we did continue talking for a while about our own RVs and some nightmare maintenance projects over the years. The big takeaway is to be proactive and pay attention to detail. If something doesn't look right or sound right, investigate further immediately. And don't just turn to YouTube. Search for expert articles and check discussion forums for your specific model of RV. And if you're considering starting an RV business or getting into the industry, you better know your stuff too. If not, take a course. Get certified. Check the show notes for some links to get started. A point of clarification there. Dave mentioned social knowledge. Well, that is what powers the RV Life network of sites, including where you'll find much of his writing. RV Life, Let's RV, Do It Yourself RV, RV Living, as well as many brand-specific forums and blogs. Of course, here at RV Life Entrepreneur, we're proud to be an additional resource to help make RVing simple. And for us working nomads, that means producing this podcast, hosting events like the recent RVE workshop, and launching the new RV Entrepreneur Talent Pool. Have you created your free profile yet? Join today and list your expertise to find that next gig. Or search the public directory if you need help with a project. Why not work with fellow RV entrepreneurs? Check it out at therventrepreneur.com/talent. Until next time, let's keep this discussion going. Let us know what you think. Leave a review or reach out in the RVE community group on Facebook. Happy travels.
Ever wished you could learn more about RVing from the experts? With RV Life Masterclass, you can. Gain access to a wealth of knowledge through online courses and a resource library filled with insightful guides. Whether you're a novice RVer or a seasoned traveler, there's always something new to learn. Start expanding your RV knowledge today by visiting rvlife.com.